Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. He is here digitally recording us in high definition for later broadcast on your local cable system or on their wonderful website. And the reason why he's here, Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert is here for his monthly visit, and he'll be here for the entire hour, and we'll be taking your questions as well. If you have a question for the sheriff, you can reach us at 715-424-2600. With that, we say good morning to the sheriff. Good morning, sir.
Well, thank you, Carl. Good morning to you also. I did not bring a guest today. I've come to the conclusion that one of two things happened. Either everyone is very busy,
right,
which I'm hoping is the case, or B, they hid from me this morning. they hid from me this morning to avoid that last minute.
Hey, you're coming with me
today. Everyone is. I know that several of our guys are at different meetings and stuff this morning, and I think in general, I think we have a very busy office today.
Well, that's good.
So
you're doing the work of the people when you're doing that.
And you know, it's important. I think that folks remember that. That is really, the work that a sheriff's department does, and the work that the deputies and our office staff and our jailers and everyone that's really associated with us, it's truly the work of the people. And I think sometimes in the noise that we have going on and the noise that we have in our lives, I think that fact sometimes is lost. So very many of the folks that are there are really committed public servants. They are folks that are doing this, because they truly want to serve. And I think that is I think conceptually that is the neatest thing. And I'm so proud of the folks that work for us. Oftentimes in not ideal situations, the deputies certainly have circumstances that are unpleasant. I know our staff in the jail many times has a very unpleasant duty to do given the assignments of their work, and they do it for a couple reasons. Certainly there's a self-interest. It's a career, and it's what puts food on the table for their families. But they're also doing it because they care about our community, and that makes me really proud. And I think a call to service, just as John Kennedy had said, is a very noble thing, and I'm proud of each and every one of them.
Now, we want to begin our discussion today getting your input. Had your lovely bride here talking about entrepreneurial boot camps and the like for inmates, and we were talking from the chamber's perspective, trying to create some new business people, hopefully that they stay, they find a new meaningful career, and they don't return to jail. They become positive aspects to our community, add something to the community. And I'd like to get your take on this, the training session you held to start giving inmates some skills to become business people.
Well, I think it's a really important thing, and it's a neat thing for us because we are the first county jail entity in the entire state of Wisconsin to do this, which I think that speaks to the progressive nature of our department. I thought this was a neat idea when Missy first started talking about it with me. The Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation had posted a grant opportunity for Chamber of Commerce's. We had come up with this idea thinking, gee, this would be a really neat idea for something for the prisoners. We hear so much about, what do people do after they get out of jail? And it is admittedly a tough road to hoe when you get out of jail. It's hard sometimes. You don't, the folks that are leaving there don't just walk back into a lucrative job or some sort of many times even a positive situation. So we had this idea that we would do this project, apply for this grant, and see if we could get funding to put on an economic boot camp, a business boot camp for our prisoners. And lo and behold, we got the money. And again, the first county organization, the first county jail in the state to do so. So a couple weekends ago, we had a program over at McMillan Library, primarily for the folks that were on our electronic monitoring program. During the course of the day, we had probably 50 people there. I was honored to give the welcome to them, and I spoke to them. I spoke to the prisoners regarding that this was an opportunity for them, and it was an opportunity for them to grow and to turn their lives around and do something very positive. Now, do I believe that there's going to be 50 new businesses started because there were 50 people there? No, I really don't. I'd be really glad if we had 1, 2, or 3 new businesses started from this. But I think, in a broader sense, I think what education does for people and for inmates is to broaden their horizon. And I think that some of the skills, some of the ideas, some of the concepts that were put out to them by just a top group of presenters that day is going to benefit them in other ways in their lives, even if they don't start a business. The only thing about this that I've found not really frustrating, but at least but somewhat persistent is there's I think a small segment of folks that, for whatever reason, don't believe we should be doing anything for people that are coming out of jail.
And then they complain about the recidivism.
They complain about the recidivism issue, but what's sorely lacking from their argument is, well, what's your idea? There isn't really, it's just, well, why are we doing this for them, or why are we doing this, for people that are in jail? They're in there for a reason. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are in there for a reason, but they're still human beings. And this is an idea, and this is the idea of being decent to people. Dare I say, kind to people that are in jail, I think is a very good idea. And this is a two-sided coin. We benefit as a society from this too, whether or not if we can get these people not to reoffend, that's great. What the greatest problem that confronts our jail right now is people getting out of jail, not being out of jail very long, and then being back in jail again. That's what's basically the issue with the overcrowding situation that we have in the jail. People are out of jail for a very short time and then back in again for some other offense or a violation of probation or some type of rules violation. Maybe this is going to give people an opportunity to do something better. Maybe, who knows, we might have a bakery started from this, engine repair shop. I know those were a couple of the things that the people that I had spoke to there had talked about. Let's see what happens. If nothing else, it certainly offers people hope, and I think that I think that's something that we probably all need.
You bring up a very good point, and that there was recently, I think it was just last week or the week before, in the Sunday editorial section of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, a piece written by former Governor Tommy Thompson and a lawyer, talking about, and the governor basically said he's done a rethinking about the old lock 'em up and throw away the key. He goes, we built a whole bunch of prisons during my term as governor. He goes, it didn't solve the problem because the population keeps growing. And one of the reasons why in the article is that we have got to find economic opportunities for people getting out of incarceration. If we don't, we're not going to solve the problem of prison crowding, jail crowding, whatever. We have to have economic opportunity available for people reentering society. And this kind of goes along with what you're saying. The Wood County Jail is saying, listen, we don't want to see you here again. You need to acquire some skills. And whether it starts your own business or maybe if you acquire skills that you can give to another business who gives you a chance.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, Carl, it's actually as simple, even not skills that are advanced skills. A lot of times, it's just something simple as reading and writing. And a lot of the people that are in the jail are disadvantaged to the point that they don't read and write well. And to do things that allow them to function, allow prisoners re-entering the system to function more prominently within society would be a huge thing. It instills a sense of pride, and it instills a sense of justice, and it'll keep them from committing that next crime. That's an interest. I didn't have the opportunity to read that article by Governor Thompson, but that is an interesting thing. Oftentimes, I think of those days when we were building a lot of prisons. We had gone so far, and this at the time struck me as being kind of crazy, and today it I think strikes me as even being more crazy. We had gone so far as when we would open these prisons up, we would toast the opening of these prisons with champagne.
Yeah.
Let's.
They were celebrated. Hi, we got another place to incarcerate people.
That just still strikes me as the most awkward, backward way of thinking that possibly could be around. And it's wonderful to hear Governor Thompson talk about that. Marlon always talked to me about the fact that he. Marlon Schneider always really appreciated Tommy Thompson as governor because he was
they had a great working relationship together.
Wonderful. I think Marlon says that he worked probably better with Tommy Thompson than he did with some of the Democratic governors.
He's told me that
he served with, and thinks very highly of him. And when you look at Tommy Thompson's record over the course of his career, it was actually a rather progressive record in Wisconsin tradition.
In the article, if you search it, he describes how he used to like to hold these meetings. He'd call the Republican leadership together, and they were thinking, "Oh, we're meeting with the governor," and unbeknownst to them, he's also invited the Democratic leadership. Mm-hmm. And they'd sit down both, and they're all going, "Okay, now both of us, now we're going to work on a problem here, and we're going to forget about R's and D's, and let's solve the problem." And I thought that was a great.
Well, it's an approach that I think is used less and less often now.
Yes.
I don't think that there's quite that. That bipartisan meld that maybe Tommy Thompson stood for, and that's certainly, in the conversations that I've had with Representative Schneider, that was present then. There was a give and take of ideas, and there was some horse trading going on to solve problems, rather than just one side saying no to the other side, which. I've never thought was a particularly great idea.
You don't find a business that would be run that way.
No, you really don't. But this idea I think is neat, and I'm anxious to see how this looks. Maybe a year from now or 18 months from now, when we take a look at what impact it had on the people that we served. We're going to be doing more of these programs actually inside the jail in upcoming months, where we're going to have presenters, folks from the chamber, business leaders, going literally inside the bars of the jail and teach these boot camps to the folks that are actively incarcerated without the opportunity to be out on either Huber or the electronic monitor. So again, that's going to be a first for Wood County. It's going to be, I think, a first for our area, having that kind of training happening within the jail proper. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
I think the fact that the business community is involved with this and is excited about it, I think, speaks highly of the business community in this area as well. What was the reaction from the two sides after that first session, both from the prisoners and also from the presenters and the like?
Well, the presenters spoke with Missy about it, all very positive in chatting about it. I had the opportunity to look over the evaluations of the boot camp, overwhelmingly popular. There wasn't one person that said, "Oh, this was stupid" or "this was a dumb idea." Everybody saw worth in it. There were several people that said, "I'm probably not going to start a business, just not my cup of tea." But this was a good thing. It helped me in terms of writing. It helped me in terms of understanding. It helped me in terms of comprehension. So overwhelmingly popular with the folks that we were doing it with. The business people that had talked, again, they were very positive in terms of the reaction they got and how it worked for them. I had the opportunity to sit in on some of the sessions, and it was great information going out there. And people were, one of the questions that might come up were, well, were the prisoners behaved? And the answer is yes. They were very well behaved. They did not, they were respectful. There were no issues that I think stereotypically you would think might happen, and all went well.
Well, you've had in the past people go in to help get people their GED and do other kind of educational thing or spiritual things.
Correct.
So this is all part of the same package to help the individual realize, okay, you made a mistake, you've paid your debt, but now once you paid your debt, get out of here. We don't want to see you again.
We like you, but we don't want you back.
We don't want you back. But we also want you to become a productive member of society.
We want you to start doing the right thing. We want you to, stop burglarizing people, stop stealing from people, stop writing bad checks, stop using drugs. We want you to conform with the norms of the society in a way that would add something positive to the entire process. And we hear so very often, and we celebrate sometimes even on May Day, which we just had yesterday, the value of work,
right? And
and the dignity of work, and those are important things. And it's if someone's working, if someone is productively employed, using that money to support their family or for whatever purpose, society benefits from that. And that's one of our goals in incarceration is getting people back into that and providing programs such as electronic monitoring that allow that whole work process to continue while they're incarcerated. We really, we're probably at over 55 people now on electronic monitoring. And, that program has been a wild success just in terms, if you want to talk about economics for the county.
Okay.
Saves us a ton of money in terms of typical incarceration, whether that would be just locked up or on the Huber system. Saved us a ton of money. And it also lengthens the ability of using our current facilities that we have, because we don't have nearly the number of people that we would have otherwise. Now, for the family that's involved, we didn't keep stats on it, but my guess is that has had a tremendously positive impact on local families where that separation doesn't take place, and while still serving your penalty to society, you're still providing for your family. And I think that's pretty bottom line.
And if you have to make reparations to the people you've offended, you have to be able to make money to do that.
Somehow to do it. Yeah,
right. To say just, no, don't do anything, then they can't really pay back their victims.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of these folks are, they're working for $10-12 an hour. And I don't think it comes to any shock that no one's getting rich on $10-12 an hour these days. But again, that kind of goes back to the idea that there is that there's a certain dignity in work, and there's a certain productive element to it that makes you part of a community and makes you a contributing member.
What qualifies an inmate for this program? Are there certain limits?
No. we've opened it up to literally everybody that's in the jail. Anyone that has the opportunity, everyone in the jail, whether they're incarcerated on Huber law or on electronic monitoring, is going to have an opportunity to take part in this. As broad as we possibly can make it.
Except for those that might be headed to the state prison system.
Well, it would be a diminishing return on that. But they're generally, those folks aren't generally, usually when someone's committed to prison, they're usually out of the jail like a day or two after they've been sent to prison. We usually don't, there isn't usually a very long time that people that are going to state prison stay in our jail anymore.
So the people that are in the jail are people who have committed misdemeanors or the type of crimes where they get a jail sentence.
Less than a year, generally.
Less than a year.
Yes, and less than a year in jail, and it's usually, there are. I'm not downplaying the jail. Certainly, there are dangerous people that are in the jail. There are folks in the jail that
belong in the jail.
That have hurt people, that have hurt children, that have killed people.
But they'll be eventually headed to the
they'll
prisons.
Probably be eventually heading someplace else away from our community. But the jail is a dangerous place, and I certainly don't view it as some sort of social laboratory to try to rehabilitate everyone that comes in. But the idea of offering a helping hand and being kind to people, I don't think is lost on, shouldn't be lost on people that are incarcerated.
Okay. How many more of these boot camps are you going to hold? Or what about the ones that there's going to be some follow-up with these inmates, or how is this going to happen?
Well, there'll be another boot camp within the jail proper, I believe sometime this summer. And beyond that, I think there may be one more. There may be one more yet this fall. I'm not sure on that yet.
Okay.
So it's going to be an ongoing thing where we can get the folks that are there, and some of that population, in the course of 3 or 4 months, a lot of that population in our jail is going to flip. A lot of the people that were there might be gone. We might have new people coming in, and we'll make the opportunity available to all of them.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and it's kind of an interesting partnership between the business community and law enforcement.
Well, I think in our area right now we have a lack of there's a
lack of workers.
Lack of workers, and you hear that.
That's what Governor Thompson's article was about. Hey, we got lack of workers. We got jobs. We got prisoners coming out. They need work. Mm-hmm.
And it's what the challenge is melding those two needs, and we're trying our best locally to do that, and I'm pretty proud of the effort.
Okay, we got to take our first break, and this is the time of the year when we start hearing about storms and the like. I want to talk to the sheriff about the Wood County law enforcement's role when it comes to keeping us safe during the storm season, also how the summer season changes things for the Wood County Sheriff's Department.
Good morning and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thanks again, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of today's Morning Magazine. Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert is here for both portions, and so is Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. And you can view a replay of this on your local cable access channel or on their website. And so Jesse's getting my good side. And once again, you'll find out why I have a face for radio. Sheriff, we were just talking about the boot camps for the entrepreneurial boot camps, but another area of concern involving folks who are incarcerated involves mental health, drug and alcohol abuse. Because if we don't get a handle on that, that's another thing that will just result in recidivism. Coming back, the same crimes being committed by the same people.
We call it the blender effect.
The blender effect. Okay.
You're spinning around. You're out for a little while, then you're back in again. Which is the main, as I mentioned earlier, is the main problem that we have in terms of our incarcerations right now. The number of folks actually that are going to jail is remaining rather consistent. We and I've mentioned this before on the program. We've studied this fairly. We did a fairly significant study on this, and we found that there's approximately 4,000 people in Wood County that have been in jail or are currently in jail. That number of 4,000, even with this perceived heroin crisis, has remained consistent, which tells me that we really aren't having new people coming into the life of going to jail. That number has remained consistently at around 4,000 people. But once people get in the jail, they're there for any number of reasons, and some of them are in jail because of drug use, mental health issues, and they represent to us a very, dare I say, like a problematic inmate, just because of what they're going through. The jail was never intended to be a dry out facility for someone that's an alcoholic or some type of a facility for a drug addict to come off of drugs. It wasn't built for that. Our folks aren't necessarily trained for that. And those type of prisoners present a tremendous problem for us in terms of the amount of attention we have to give them, the amount of individualized supervision that we must give them, and generally make it very, very difficult for the people that are working in corrections at the jail to do their other duties that they need to do for the vast larger number of prisoners. So one of our goals for 2018 is to implement a comprehensive mental health program within the jail. And we're currently in the process of identifying and negotiating a deal with a private company that would provide mental health services within the jail. Suicide prevention type things, mental, crisis intervention type programs, programs that are going to deal with a lot of the issues that the folks that are in there that are alcohol dependent, drug dependent, have some other sort of mental issue, that's going to be able to deal with those issues more on a one-on-one basis and correct them while they're incarcerated, so that we eliminate problems that we have for our corrections officers, as well as putting someone back onto the street that maybe has a better opportunity for success.
Has this been done anywhere else, either in Wisconsin or in the country, as you know?
It's been done in different jails. We're not breaking.
Right.
We're not breaking
new ground
on this.
But it's basically
we're using. We're looking at a program that has been implemented in several jails and prisons throughout the Midwest.
Okay.
Our medical provider that we have for our jail is a regional company that has people all over in a number of states: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, kind of an upper Midwest type of operation, and they've put this second kind of program into a lot of other jails and had decent success with it.
Okay, we got our first caller in again, 715-424-2600, the number to call if you want to speak to the sheriff. And with that, good morning. You're on the Morning Magazine.
Good morning. I just like to know what is it like for a typical day in the Wood County Jail, from the sun up to sundown, what they eat, what they do, what they sleep, where they sleep, how many are in a cell, etc. What's a day like for them in jail? And I'll hang up and listen for your comments.
Okay, very good question. Fair question. Yeah, let's talk about life in the Wood County Jail.
Life in the jail. Well, it isn't something that I think that we would that most of us would want to trade for. It's a regimented operation. It's a process. It's a process. The prisoners get up for breakfast at about 7:00 in the morning. They're fed breakfast, and generally during the day, they are incarcerated in what's called like a day room, where they basically have interaction with 3 or 4 other prisoners, and they do a number of things. There's TVs inside the jail. There are there are books which we encourage them to read. There are other activities that they can do, puzzles, that type of thing. There isn't like a whole lot of other. We don't have any like sort of recreational facility where like you see in movies where people go out like into a big yard and run around or play catch or shoot baskets or something. We don't have any sort of facilities like that. A day for a person in jail is basically 24 hours being locked in a room a relatively small room.
Are they in charge of cleaning their area?
They need to keep their room clean. They need to take care of getting on certain days they have to strip their bunks so that the linens can be washed. They're served breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Nothing decent food, but nothing that I think any of us would want to really trade for. But what we're doing for them, we're meeting their nutritional requirements. They're certainly getting enough calories. They're certainly getting opportunity to have food that's healthy for them. So they're fed 3 times, both the morning, noon, and night. During the course of the day, some of them might have to have an attorney meeting where an attorney might come and visit them. Some of them might have health issues that they would meet with our medical staff about. And as the day winds down, there's a lights out time where they're back incarcerated into their cells again, and the process starts over again the next morning.
What's lights out? What time is lights?
It's generally around 10 o'clock.
Okay, and is there more than one person in a cell?
Well, when it's time for lights out, individuals are put in the day room is vacated and they're put into individual cells.
Okay.
So there's 5 or 6 cells within each living complex that the prisoners have, and then we have several of those units throughout the jail. At nighttime, they're locked down. They're in an individual cell that's probably 6 feet by 8 feet, 6 feet by 10 feet, relatively small. All that's in there is their bunk, a toilet and a sink, as well as blankets and things, and they can have books and things and read in there during the evening. Now, there's other parts of the jail where we have to house people that might have other issues, like mental health issues. Maybe they're suicidal. Maybe they're having, maybe they might have some sort of medical condition that prompts us to keep them separated, and they're segregated. Now, in those cases, a person is confined to basically, again, probably a 8 by 10 foot room, maybe a little less, probably 6 by 10 foot room that just has those very basic functions in it: a toilet, sink, and a bunk. And they're locked in there by themselves. It's basically an oversized closet that they have to remain in for some reason, whether it be health, mental issues. Sometimes they have to go in that if they're disruptive within the regular cells, they have to be put by themselves.
Now, how often are the cells or the area patrolled by the staff of the jail?
It's a requirement both internally at our department, as well as a statewide rule that prisoners are checked on at least every half hour. So we regularly we have a system where the corrections officers have to go through, visually check everyone, and then make note of it we use like a kind of a recorder device where they have to touch a magnetic a wand is what it's called, where it records that they had gone and checked on the prisoners. Additionally to that, we also implemented a few years ago a very nice camera system within the jail, where we can monitor what the actions of our corrections officer, as well as some of the actions of the people that are incarcerated. Now, we certainly don't have any sort of we can't monitor them by camera when they shower or some other type of personal function, but we do monitor them in terms of what's going on within their cells.
Okay. Now, with that, obviously, someone who's a violent criminal is segregated from the.
Correct.
So, if someone's is charged with murder or something or child molestation, they're going to be away from other aspects of the jail.
They will be, and we're limited in what we have to categorize all of our prisoners so that we try to get people. So we don't want like someone that's charged with aggravated battery being housed with someone that's charged with writing bad checks. We try to keep like prisoners with like prisoners, and so we do a classification process where we classify on a number of factors on a scale, where we put certain prisoners that are similar in probably offense capability with each other. So you'll end up sometimes then having like a cell of 6 people, really bad dudes, people that are beat up people and maybe attempted homicide or whatever the case might be. And then you would have another cell area where you may have some people that have done far lesser offenses.
And that leads to the other question. You have that arrangement with Waupaca County.
Correct.
What type of prisoners are sent to Waupaca?
Waupaca County will only take the best of our best prisoners. I think every once in a while we'll try to slip someone in there that's going to maybe be a little bit more problematic or that we know as we've had troubles with in the past. They generally get returned to us. They generally only take our most desirable prisoners and the people that are going to cause the least problems and the people that are going to be more model prisoners. So our jail facility here in Wood County tends to have more of the folks that are in on more serious charges.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break and then be back with more here on the Morning Magazine. Here at AM 1320. Welcome back to the final portion of our hour-long visit with Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert. We have those coins.
Yes.
They're called
challenge coins.
Challenge coins. And if you would like one of those coins, all you have to do is call 715-424-2600. If you've already received one before, please let someone else get one of them. But if you would like one of these coins, they're beautiful, especially if you're a coin collector, and they make a nice addition to your collection, and they salute the service in the Wood County Sheriff's Department.
The gentleman that called in with the question about the jail, if he would call back, we certainly will make one available to him. Okay.
Let's talk about weather now, and some areas to the south have already had severe weather. Let's talk about your role, Wood County. First off, how things change as we go into the warm weather months, and then also the role of law enforcement as some important eyes for officials, say, at the National Weather Service.
I know those are certainly key issues, but I know one issue that I saw last night with the bit of thunder that we had.
And the lightning.
My golden retriever Roosevelt was very scared.
Yes.
And which kind of is the official beginning of storm season, I guess, when RR is scared. But yeah, we certainly play with emergency government. Steve Cruiser does a great job down in our emergency government. He's been doing it for many, many, many years. Providing assistance, providing warning in terms of severe weather. The Sheriff's Department, we've always played a rather key role in that, in terms of spotting, in terms of certainly investigating. If we get reports of inclement weather, we certainly keep our eyes on the sky. We might not log the number of patrol miles at the time, because it's probably far safer, not driving during those type of weather events. But we certainly also have a huge responsibility if we are hit with a weather event. Several years ago, there was a tornado that went through Saratoga.
Yes.
That we played a very major role with emergency government in establishing a perimeter, getting people to the houses that were damaged, making sure that folks were okay. Many years ago, there was a really bad tornado that hit Auburndale.
I remember that. I covered it.
And we played a very prolonged role actually in securing Auburndale, basically, and making sure that the people were there that were supposed to be there. I'll always remember that one though, because at the time I was a deputy in a squad car, and I ended up somewhat by accident being like in a location right near Auburndale, maybe 5 miles away, and the tornado, I think, came somewhere near where I was, and it blew the lights off my squad car. Needless to say, I was somewhat scared at the time. I was like 21, and that was quite a shocking thing. I was never exposed to that kind of a weather event before.
We have wonderful camping facilities in Wood County in our park system. And what about when there's a storm coming? And you have big events too, like at the State Water Ski Show tournament. What about when there's a big storm coming and you got a camp? Got a whole bunch of campers in the campgrounds. Do deputies go to the campground to spread the word? Hey, folks, you need to get to more secure facilities.
Generally, there's communication between emergency government and the folks that are the hosts and are at the campgrounds all the time.
Okay.
So absent that, though, we certainly have on occasion gone through to make sure that everyone is safe and knows about what's going on. So the answer to your question is sometimes and yes. We will do whatever we need to do or whatever emergency government asks us to do in those types of weather emergencies, whether it's spotting, whether it's trying to locate where the inclement weather might be, where the tornado might be, whether it's response. I would say our response element is probably the most important thing that we do, because if someone is injured or trapped or in a precarious position because of the weather, we want to get there and help them out.
Yeah, and speed is of the essence in that situation.
It's so very important. It's so very important. It's you have to get boots on the ground. You got to get folks going to these houses. I know some of our younger officers, when the Saratoga tornado had happened, I think were somewhat reluctant to go to these houses that had like trees laying on the top
Sure.
of them, but no, they needed to, and they went there then, and actually verbally and tried to make contact with anybody that could conceivably have been in the house. Is there anyone in there? Are you okay? What's going on? Those type of things. And when storms like that happen, and there's a bad looking scene, that's not the time to be timid or bashful.
And that's also when you deal with multiple agencies responding.
That's correct. You have the fire departments, you have emergency government, you have the sheriff's department, you might have other local law enforcement agencies. State Patrol could be there. I know they were there on the Saratoga one. Certainly, I would anticipate if a disaster would hit Nakusa, the Nakusa PD would be playing a very prominent role in it, and we would help them any way that we could.
Okay. Now, one of the things we've talked about in the past, I don't think a lot of people realize, is the role you play in patrolling the parks, or making sure that the parks people can have a good time in the parks, and also the waterways of Wood County. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, we look at those as kind of like recreation areas, and I think that it's our role to make sure, or at least part of our responsibility, to make sure that the folks that are using our campgrounds and using our parks are having an enjoyable time, and that their time isn't being spoiled by some exigent circumstance, such as a overserved neighbor.
Right.
We certainly want to do whatever we can to make people's visits to the campgrounds and using the river and the lakes that we have in our county a pleasurable thing. We have a boat patrol that goes out during the summer months, and that looks for violations in terms of in terms of the waterways, but more so than looking for violations or trying to bust somebody for not having enough life jackets or something, they're out there to make sure that everybody's safe. They're out there to make sure that everybody's having a good time and enjoying themselves. Our involvement with that isn't a punitive one. I don't want it to be that way. I want them to, there may be times when it's necessary to cite someone for a water violation, but the real purpose in being out there is making sure that everybody is safe and making sure that everyone has a good time. Same thing for the campgrounds. We have a reserve deputy program that specifically patrols the campgrounds during the summer months, and works out there on the weekends and sometimes when there's special events they're at to make sure that everything is controlled, and that you don't have one rowdy spot of people
spoiling
the peace for everybody else, or spoiling the good time for everybody else, which happens sometimes, but not nearly as much now as what it did 20 years ago.
And I think I attribute it, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you have visibility like that, that provides an incentive for people to behave, both on the water and on the land.
You've hit the exact thing we want to do. We want to be seen. I've encouraged our deputies, I've encouraged our reserve deputies, when they're out in the park and they're hanging out with these people, play baseball with them, play with the kids, shoot baskets with them, play catch with them if you want to. I don't mind
develop a relationship with them.
I don't mind them doing those sort of things. I think rather than sitting in the car with the windows up and the air conditioner and the radio on, I would much rather them be out, if the people want them to, I'd much rather them being out and visiting with folks and playing with the kids. We've gotten a really great response from that. A lot of people have contacted me and said, Reserve Deputy so-and-so was with us here at the campground and he played basketball with the kids. We've had circumstances where
we've even had some videos.
We did videos, of a reserve deputy that was dancing, which was hilarious. I thought it was just great. That's exactly, I think, what our role should be in those type of situations. We had one kind of neat deal where we had a deputy stop by and was shooting baskets with some kids, and he was at like a community center. And they were shooting baskets, and their basketball hoop was in horrible condition. Well, we had come back, and we were able to, through use of some grants that we had available to us, we were able to get a different backboard for these kids to play basketball with. And a couple of the deputies went out there and put it up and stuff. It was a neat project. It's stuff like that I think a lot of times we don't hear about, but is really the cool work that we do. It's not really.
That's what you call community policing.
That's exactly what community policing. Being an effective law enforcement agency isn't about how many drunk drivers you arrest. It's about how you get people to conform to the laws that we have without having to arrest them. And what better way to do that than to start at a young age, go and play ball with the kids and visit with folks at a campground. If I was starting out again as a law enforcement officer, I think I would absolutely love being a reserve deputy at the Sheriff's Department.
Well, sir, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh, that went quick.
It went quick. But I guess as we get into the summer months, everybody be careful, be safe out there. And when it comes to outdoor parties and picnics and family reunions, if you're going to be imbibing, make sure there's designated drivers and for everybody to get home safe.
Absolutely. We're getting close to graduation time.
Oh, good.
So the graduation parties, parents, let's use some common sense. And, really, it doesn't make you a cool parent allowing underage people to drink. And all it does is create a very just dangerous situation.
Well, as always, I appreciate the time, Sheriff. You have yourself a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Great being here.
Okay. Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert wrapping up today's edition of the Morning Magazine.